Hello, everyone. Welcome to the LNI Carswell Observatory special training video for the 1-meter telescope. We are going to discuss how to take off the SBIG CCD from the 1-meter. This is part one of a video series, and we're very pleased to have you all join us this evening. Of course, we will be posting part two at some future date. I'm Dr. Elena Hyde, and I'm here from the LNI Carswell Observatory in York University here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to find out about our free public tours, our outreach, our research, our observing with said 1-meter telescope or the 60 centimeter, you can find all that information and more over on our website, yorku.ca/science/observatory. So for tonight, I'm joined by Sana Withers, who's here helping me and has also been helping with the tutorial for this evening. So Sana, please go ahead and take it away. Let's go ahead and start off the how to take the SBIG off of the 1-meter.
All right, thanks. So here is part one of the video that I'll just start playing
All right,
about.
you'll see the SBIG here. This is the CCD. It's an SBIG CCD from Diffraction Limited. It's a bit old and it has a filter wheel attached to it. You can see what I'm pointing to now are some of the cables which have to be detached before the CCD can be removed from the telescope. So these two black cables, power and communication, have to be removed so that now the filter wheel and the CCD are not attached by cables. The cables run through an entire trace going along the downside there. And if you leave it attached, it will really hinder your ability to take it off. So let's go ahead and get into the next video.
All right, here we go.
So we're on a completely different angle. The rotator has twisted around, and we have now access to the tiny little hex screws that are on the tiny little lip of the mounting here, and it's the very top ring. There are 3 of these screws, and the hex key you want is a small silver one, which has been labeled since this video has been made as SBIG. This is to remove the SBIG. You must loosen those 3 screws, and we're now pointing to them. That was Dr. Patrick Hall from York University, who you saw holding the SBIG, and the handles you actually saw in the other video as well. The handles are there as a stable support. So when you're doing this, you must have at least minimum 2 persons. One person with their hands at the bottom holding the CCD and the filter wheel together, using those handles to support it while the screws are loosened. When the first screw is loosened, it will wobble a little. When the second screw is loosened, you'll start to hear some dangerous sounding noises, and you must have someone supporting it at that point. When the third screw starts to come loose, it will literally drop out. So you must have those hands supporting your CCD and your filter wheel when the other person is loosening the screws. Ideally, the person holding the CCD and the filter wheel is actually pushing up a little bit to keep the screws from getting too much pressure on them. This will make it a lot easier for the person who has to take the screws out with this little tiny hex key. We actually thought it might have been like glued or something at first because it was very, very stubborn. But it's not glued. It's just the screws are extremely tight, and they're meant to be tight. So you need to get them at just the right angle, and you need to have someone supporting the CCD and filter wheel, pushing it back up to prevent the weight from making the screws too hard to remove. So must have a 2-person job for this. Sana, do you remember anything else about this part of it?
No, I think you covered everything.
All right, and again, for the folks who are using this as a tutorial, it's those very top 3 screws. The angle is just possible to get, and you want to make sure when you are doing this, actually, we probably should have put this at the beginning, the CCD is powered off in the control room. So all of this is after you have checked the CCD is completely powered off, the telescope is powered off, and the rotator is powered off, which means you can turn the rotator by hand, move the CCD into this nice position, And if you have three people, one person can hold the rotator in place, one person can hold the CCD in place, and the third person can loosen those very, very tiny screws where you see that hex key going now. It's the last flange before the mounting with the Pegasus port. I always get Pegasus and Perseus confused, but that's the flipper port here. So let's go ahead and just see that end again. So once all these are loosened, it will completely drop down. And let's go ahead
Take a
and
look
get to the
at
next. Yeah.
bringing it downstairs.
Yes. So once this is done, it drops down and we carry it carefully downstairs using those handles. If there is anything going on in the domes, like, I don't know, they're painting or vacuuming or there's dust around, you would put a cover, usually one of the optical wipe cloths or something over top of it. But usually that's not necessary. You just carry it down, you bring it into my office. There's one clean table in my office. We set it down and then we can begin disassembly. Is that how you remember it, Senna?
Yep, pretty much. Just very carefully trying to not trip while holding the CCD.
Yeah, don't drop it. Give it to the person who looks the most stable going down the stairs. And if you're bringing multiple things, you will need to bring, of course, the different hex keys for disassembly, as well as the miniature screwdriver set and the CCD and filter wheel, which are still attached as one unit. If you're carrying this, maybe get one person to carry each thing so that, their division of labor, and the person carrying the CCD should not carry anything else or be distracted because we do not want to drop it. I don't even want to think what would happen if we did that. So fingers crossed, don't drop the CCD. All right, so it's in my office.
Yes.
Now we're going to unplug the filter wheel from the CCD. Sorry about the angle here. It is sideways to show you the best view. But this is the communication cable. So you have to unplug this to remove the filter wheel from the CCD. So now we have to take the filter wheel off, which means we have to take the front casing off, which are little hex screws.
Let me just go to the view that
All
shows
right.
a little better. All right, here we go.
Okay. Yes. So I have snipped this blue thing so that it's a little bit shorter in the meantime, the blue zip tie. The blue zip tied hex key is the right one for removing the screws. If they come all the way out, that's okay. Just make sure to put them into a lid or something like I just did so they don't go flying around. And of course, there's, 7 of these. If most, and I believe after that first one, they actually all did stay in the lid. This is the top of the filter wheel. This is not the entire filter wheel. We're just taking off the top of the filter wheel and then we'll be able to take off the bottom. So here we go. All of those are loosened. The rest of them have stayed in the lid. So I just put the lid down with all the screws still in it. And those are hex key screws. Now this is the bottom of the filter wheel. This little cable, it does have a little dent in it, but as long as it's inside the small gap in the housing, it's okay that the cable is crimped. So that's how it's supposed to be. And this can only go onto the CCD in one direction because that power connection or signal connection cable that you saw, that has to be plugged in where it was. So you cannot have this rotated 180 degrees. With the top housing off, we now have access to the filters, which are the Johnson Cousins RGB filters, plus, or I should say RGBI filters. So there are 4, and we have 3 neutral density filters and 1 blank space. Now, the trick with this filter wheel is you must have 1 blank space in order to mount the filter wheel. So the 3 neutral density filters seen here are ND, I think 1, 2, and 5 from memory. Does that sound right to you, Sana? Was it 1, 2, and 5?
It might be 2, 4, and 5.
2, 4, and 5.
But
I think you're right. It is 2 and 4 and 5, and we'll probably take out um 4 or 5 and replace it with an H alpha filter at some point in the near future when said H alpha filter arrives. The blue band you see running around, that is the band that is in charge of rotating the filter wheel. It does not have any breaks in it, but it does have one small spot where there's a little silver connector where the band is coming together. If it's missing any teeth or if this band breaks, the filter wheel cannot be used. So we have to take it the rest of the way off. Um, these little screws that I'm pointing to here, these are the screws to remove the bottom of the filter wheel. And as you can see, I need to use that blank filter spot to actually access the screws. So there are 8 of them, and 4 of them are blocked completely by the filter wheel itself. Bit of a funny design. Um, don't tell them diffraction limited. I said that, but here it is. So this has to be done with the small screwdriver from the small screwdriver set, and up in the tool area, those small screwdriver set
okay, so we're
should
taking
have the
out.
hex keys in them, the right ones. So it should be all together. So these have to come out completely, and the small screwdriver, just make sure that when you're near the end, you pick the screw up directly. That way it cannot fall and roll around and, I don't know, hit any filters or scratch them. So we want to make sure the screws do not go wild. So when doing this, I always make sure to do two-handed, and you pick the screws up as they come out. And that's going to be true of most of them, with the exception of the top of this filter wheel. Of course, I left most of those screws in. And rotating the filter wheel around, you're able to get the final 4. And this is actually a good way to check that your filter wheel is behaving normally. You'll note that I'm rotating it by hand. I'm just using my hand on the edge of the filter wheel to move it around and see how the gears feel. It has a little bit of resistance and it does click. There's a click every time it shifts into a new filter position for the CCD. When you have it operating and your filter wheel is moving around, you will hear that click, click, click noise. If you hear a different noise other than click, 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 this might be a reason to take it down and check to make sure, for example, the belt is not broken. But the clicking is a regular small click that you will hear every time the filter wheel rolls around. And that's that little bar on the bottom left that you're looking at now. So now it's all, the screws are out, you lift it up and you put it onto another blank piece of desk. And again, you want to make sure your surfaces are clean because you don't want to be attracting any dust anywhere in here. Now, finally, we have access to the CCD. So this is the CCD shutter, which we can manually very carefully spin around to check. Now, when you're doing stuff with this, you want to have the shutter closed over the CCD. So that is our CCD right there. That's the SBIG. A very small piece of the whole apparatus, honestly. But if we leave it closed, no dust can come onto it while we're playing with it. And we did notice as we were shifting it around a little bit of resistance. So it's another thing we can check while we have the housing open. Now to get at the desiccant, which is going to be need to get baked, we'll have to take off this red piece of the housing here. So this is going to be another 8 screws, which are hex screws, and it actually uses the same hex key as before.
So the only thing that uses the screw instead of the hex keys is removing the filter wheel.
The bottom of the filter wheel.
Yes.
Yes, correct. So the top of the filter wheel uses the hex key. The bottom of the filter wheel uses the screwdriver. That's a Phillips head, a small Phillips head screwdriver. And then the red casing uses the hex key again. And we just take all of those out. And same as before, as they're being taken out, you want to make sure to pick them up directly. Don't let them fall and roll around. If they start rolling on the floor, who knows where they'll end up. We did actually lose one. It took us about a year to find a replacement. So yeah, once the red housing is off, this is just a piece of metal. We don't want it to get dirty, but it's not delicate. Now this has a definite orientation. That side that I'm pointing at now, that's the thicker side. It goes on the thicker side of the housing. So you want to make sure that matches up. At first glance, it might look like it can go on any direction, but there's actually only one way that it can correctly go on the bottom part of the housing. So there's a one single orientation that will actually be the correct one, and none of the other ones will work, even though they look like they might. So pay a little bit of attention to your orientation. Now, to get at the actual desiccant, we need to turn it around. That goldish rectangle is the desiccant right there. It has, again, 2 hex screws, one on either side, and it has a little rubber seal on there as well. And so the rubber seal is pretty important. We don't want to lose it or accidentally bake it. So we'll take a careful look for that when this comes off. The desiccant removal is what we're doing now. So this desiccant needs to be baked every couple months. Now, this is the first screw removal, and it won't move a lot when just one screw is removed. But as the second screw comes out, what you want to do is actually be a little bit careful because we want to take out the second screw and the desiccant together so that it's not, for example, falling onto that circuit board and then rolling around on the circuit board. So we ideally want to remove the desiccant without dropping it and without losing the screw. So as I remove it, I sort of hold it a little bit and I hold it all together. So that's the desiccant and the screw coming out together.
Is there any resistance when you're removing the desiccant?
A small
Or
amount. It's a
okay.
very light, very, very light resistance. So it's very much a finger tight sort of thing.
Okay.
It's an easy screw to if you're putting any force into it, you're definitely doing it wrong. So none of these require any amount of torque. The only ones that are really difficult to remove are those very first ones when we're taking it off of the telescope, because those have to be super tight because they do not want it to fall.
Mhm.
So now we will just take a quick look here. We took off the desiccant. There was no rubber ring. The rubber ring is still inside. So the rubber ring is that little rubber bit. It's actually inside that little hole that's still in there. And it would go around the edge of that desiccant entrance. But since it stayed on the entrance to the CCD part, that's okay. We'll leave it there. We do not want to bake it. So when your desiccant comes in here, no rubber ring should be on there. That's very, very important. It would probably wreck the desiccant. So this is a toaster oven that the desiccant gets baked in, and it will be baked at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 4 hours or so. 4.5 hours is the usual amount of time.
Is there any
Now,
indication that you know when the desiccant is done baking, or do you just go based off of the time?
just off of the time, it does very slightly change its color as it gets hotter and has baked for longer. So, but it's a very subtle change. So really you want to go based on time and temperature. You do want to preheat. So if you're using the toaster oven in my office, you would preheat it to 400. And only when it was at 400, you add the desiccant. You do have to be a bit careful because, of course, obviously, don't burn your fingers when you're putting the desiccant in. It will also be very, very hot when you go to remove it. So please use a heat pad or a mitten or something. Do not touch the metal or the desiccant with your hands once it's all hot. So yes, this is the desiccant in the toaster oven. Now in this part 1, we're actually not going to bake it completely. That's going to be more for part 2. Um, Oh, and I think this is one extra video that we took just to demonstrate the housing. So we're going to pack up to leave it in place so that we can come back for part two after we've finished baking the desiccant for 4 hours, and then we will put it all back together and put it on the telescope. And if we have the H alpha filter by that time, we'll add the H alpha filter as well. So if you're packing up, obviously the main thing is you don't want dust to get anywheres. So we've just taken some optical cloths, we'll put them around. But for the filter wheel in particular, I just placed the cover back on top of the filter wheel. And again, the cover screws are all in there. So this is where it's important to actually, make sure no one is going to come into this area. So that's why it's generally done in my office and not in, for example, uh, the warm room of the telescope. um, And once the covers are on and the entrances are sort of blocked from dust, you've pretty much done what you can. It's very important that you don't touch any of the optical surfaces. If you see any smears or wipes or dust blobs, if it's one of the metal surfaces, you can use one of the little cloths to just wipe it off. But if it's on the circuit board or if it's an optical surface, or especially if it's on the CCD, do not try to clean it. Call for help on that one and just take a picture and send it to me. All right, do we have another packing up, Sana?
Nope, that was the last video.
All right, so this is the end of part one of how to take the SBIG off of the 1 meter telescope. I hope everyone has had fun with this video. I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Sana, have I forgotten anything else?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Well, hopefully this is informative to everyone. How to take the SBIG off the 1 meter part one. I hope you've enjoyed it. We will be back with part two once we have maybe our H alpha filter and finished baking for 4 hours at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, the desiccant of the SBIG. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm Dr. Elena Hyde, and I've been joined tonight by Sana Withers for this little observatory tutorial. Have a good night, everyone.